All right, Professor, Gallium smiled. It was different than the polite smile that she had given in the classroom. Utonium felt strangely, almost as if there was something familiar about that smile. Would you like to get coffee with me? Gallium was straightforward with her invitation. Right now? Utonium questioned. Gallium nodded. Sure, if you have the time. She replied. Utonium swallowed, feeling a ball of nervousness in his stomach. I mean. Yeah, but. What brings the sudden invitation on? Utonium was careful not to say the word date. He rubbed the back of his head, feeling sheepish and flustered. Gallium let out a soft breath. Well, she spoke. To be honest, she continued, I've recently adopted my boys and I'm hoping it might help to talk to someone who has children like them. She confessed. Utonium felt relief wash over him and he smiled, now understanding what was going on. He felt silly thinking that this approach was originally romantic. While he felt a little disappointed, it was for the best. He never did well on the dating scene, a trail of exes could attest to that fact. It was also good news that now he wouldn't have to worry about things being awkward at school events. Utonium felt tension leave him and he let out a breath. It would be nice to have another parent to talk to. He had to admit that much to himself. All right. He agreed after a moment. Gallium smiled and the two of them briefly spoke on where to meet up. Utonium, being more familiar with the area, suggested a local coffee shop which Utonium was familiar with because they sold muffins with organic blueberries that Blossom liked. Lalavava Cafe was just a 15-minute drive away from the school. Gallium and Utonium parked just a few spaces apart from each other before heading inside. They sat down across from each other at a table as the waitress handed them some menus. Gallium was fixated on reading through the menu, being new to the restaurant, while Utonium already had his order in mind. Letting his eyes wander because he didn't want to seem strange for staring at Gallium, he looked outside and almost laughed seeing their cars just 2 spaces apart. They were nearly identical McCrackens in the same shade of orange. Honestly, aside from the plates, Utonium was hard-pressed to figure out which one was which. Had Gallium's graduation tassel not been hanging off of her mirror, Utonium was sure he'd have to worry about getting into the wrong car after they were finished here. They both ordered coffees once the waitress showed up, Gallium ordering the same as Utonium. At first, he thought it was because she was going off of his tastes because he knew the cafe better, but when the coffee arrived at their table, the two of them put in 3 packets of sugar with a half cup of creamer at the same time. Instantly the two of them recognized their movements almost exactly mirrored each other, especially once they started to stir their drinks. Utonium and Gallium rose their gazes to meet each other, slowly stopping the gentle stirring of their spoons. This was clearly startling to both of them just based on their expressions. Utonium was sure he mirrored the wide-eyed expression that Gallium had on her face. It was strange enough that they both had superpowered children and drove the same car. But they also drank their coffee the same way. While as a scientist Utonium was aware of coincidences just happening. But having so many similarities. There was an obvious pattern here. Utonium was just unsure of what that pattern said about the two of them. Gallium was the first between the two of them to crack a smile. Utonium relaxed and the both of them started to laugh. It seems we're quite alike. Utonium observed. Yeah, it does. Gallium agreed. The two of them let out a breath at the same time and they grinned at each other. Time seemed to slip away as the two of them told each other about themselves. They had so many similarities, and while they weren't exactly the same, Utonium had never met someone he agreed with so much on. The connection they had was something that Utonium had never experienced before with someone else. For a moment he thought that maybe he had finally found the one. But that was until the topic of children came up. Gallium and Utonium were proud parents and loved their children very much. It was only natural that after talking about everything else the most important topic in the world would come up. So my girls' names are Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup. Utonium told Gallium with a smile on his lips as he sipped his coffee. Those are very sweet names. Gallium responded with a pleasant tone. Thank you. What are your boys' names? Utonium felt pride for his girls literally radiate off of him as he spoke. A large smile formed on Gallium's lips. Brick, Boomer, and Butch. She spoke with an affectionate tone. Utonium could tell she loved the boys from how she said their names. But Utonium felt a heavy weight rest in his stomach. Instantly he knew. Dr. Gallium. He spoke carefully. Are you aware of the boys' past? He asked. Oh, have you met my boys before? I know they're from Townsville. Gallium questioned. Met is kinda subjective. Utonium remarked sheepishly. What do you mean? Gallium questioned. They fought my girls. Utonium spoke honestly. That's terrible, they bullied your girls? Gallium questioned. Not exactly. They were working with my girl's arch nemesis Mojo Jojo. Utonium had glanced down at his cup of coffee. There was silence from the other side of the table. He sighed, knowing Gallium must be shocked to learn that her boys were villains. He looked up and he saw fury in Gallium's eyes, not in defense of her boys like he might have expected, but fury directed towards him. Professor. She spoke with a chilly tone. Why do your daughters have an arch nemesis? She asked coldly. The warm affection she had in her voice vanished, leaving Utonium feeling chilled under her fierce stare. They're superheroes, Utonium answered, unsure what was the issue. They've been superheroes since I made them. He explained. Utonium swore he heard the coffee cup crack in Gallium's hand. It was a sudden change in the woman's personality. Utonium felt a furious pressure radiate off of her. Made them? She asked quietly. Yeah, I made them in a lab. I was trying to make 3 perfect little girls. Utonium answered, feeling himself shrinking a bit in his seat. I was experimenting with Chemical X after learning about the Melody Project. He continued to explain. Gallium's hands hit the table with a thundering noise. Gallium had stood up and she froze as if startling herself. She took a deep breath and slowly sat back down. Children should not be used as soldiers to fight supervillains. She said in a quiet, shaking voice as if trying to control her temper. Utonium laughed at the ridiculous statement. My girls aren't soldiers, Dr. Gallium, they're superheroes. He held his hands up with laughter bubbling from his lips. This did not relax Gallium in the least. Children should not be used as soldiers to fight supervillains, Professor Utonium. She repeated herself firmly once more. Utonium lowered his hands and narrowed his eyes. What are you implying? He asked, feeling his voice grow cold. I'm not implying anything, I'm saying that no child should be forced to fight. Gallium responded. Utonium felt his temper flare. Dr. Gallium, I can assure you that I do not force my girls to fight anything. They enjoy protecting the city and growing their powers. Utonium spoke harshly. You said it yourself, they've been superheroes from the moment they were born. It's not like they know anything else, they're little girls. They're going to do whatever it takes to make you happy. Gallium's voice rose. They want to fight, it helps them reach their fullest potential. I'm not going to hold my girls back from doing what they want. Utonium found himself yelling as well. They have superpowers, for goodness sake. Having powers does not mean they're not children. Utonium gritted his teeth and glared furiously. Why do you even care? It's not like you even know what you're talking about anyway. He shouted before lukewarm coffee splashed in his face. The two of them had been standing at this point screaming at each other practically nose to nose. Silence settled in the coffee shop and it seemed that the realization they had made a scene dawned on the both of them. Gallium was taking steady deep breaths, looking furious, coffee cup still in hand. She reached into her pocket and slapped money down on the table next to the cup before turning and leaving. Nothing was said as Utonium slowly sat down in the booth, wiping his face clean with napkins. However, the broken, cracked coffee cup did catch his attention as he sat there quietly.